Hey y'all, it's at Slaughter here with Rockets Round Robin. We're here for our weekly overview. It's December 18th. The NBA Cup just ended the night before with Milwaukee taking down Oklahoma City. And we have an interesting two games of data to look at for this past week. Both were NBA Cup games at home against the Golden State Warriors, and then neutral site game in Vegas against Oklahoma City. As you can see, I added in pace as a part of this. I think it's an interesting thing to keep track of. I'm not totally sure how the interplay is between the offense and pace, but I kind of wanted to look at it, and I think we at least have some initial results here that I'd like to talk about. As you can see, we'll just start, right from the beginning here. Last week was really rough offensively. We didn't break 100 in either game. We had a 97.9 offensive rating, 48.1 true shooting, which is abysmal. It's amazing that wasn't last. 23.2, similar 2 spots from last, and that's amazing that's not last. A 1.21 assist turnover ratio, which is substantially worse than normal. Offensive rebounding percentage is about the same, and then obviously we see our pace the last 2 weeks has been very, very slow. And then that's, output it with, some not good offensive performances. So I think initial, data points tell us that our offense is not efficient whenever we slow down. Now, my main theory behind this is that either Ime instructs the team or is the team's pacifier, that whenever the games get hard or important, and we're playing for something, that we don't play fast and loose, which, is what it is. I don't think it's typically how this team plays, but we really slow the ball down. And I don't, obviously that's not producing good results for our offense. I think it's something where we need to kick the ball ahead. We need to at least start our offense sooner, because while we're not a great shot generating team, it would certainly help us if we had more time to generate those shots, even if we took a while to make those types of decisions. You can get Şengün in the post, and if they double, then you can kick it and you have more time to kick it, or you can repost them. I mean, you just have more options when you have more time. I think that's obviously the case. But a couple other things I want to talk about, this decrease in pace, I would like to see how it interplays with our assist to turnover ratio. The week before, slower pace, improvement. This was really more, I would say, an improvement of assist 2 weeks ago than it was an improvement of taking care of the ball. The Rockets, I think, are like 29th in assists, but they're like second in turnovers. So, it's like, that's how we get these numbers. They're right in the middle. But last week we had a lot of turnovers to Golden State. But I think it's interesting that the decrease in pace did not lead us an increase in taking care of the ball. Or if, our turnovers were the same, then we weren't creating shots that were assisted. And that is how this offense has to function. So that's something to take note of. How is all this remedied? Well, I don't know how it's remedied immediately in the season, but I think, there are interesting aspects to this, whether that's trying to play Jalen with Amin and Tari to have a kind of a young guy go out and run group. You would think we played some Jabari at the center over the last 2 games. You would think that would lead to increased efficiency from the 3-point line, but also would increase some pace as well. Jabari does push the ball whenever he rebounds it. So I think that, that's something I would like to see continue, and I would like to continue gathering data on that to understand where and why the offense is going wrong, or why there are improvements, so on and so forth. But one thing I think that is very evident to me is that slowing the ball down doesn't help this team, at least to the pace that they're at currently. I think for much of the year they were pretty much top 10 in pace, and then over the last 3 weeks that slowed down. part of that, I think, is that both Fred and Dylan are not as fresh as they were. So I don't think they're firing, whenever they get a defensive rebound like they were at the beginning of the year. Some of that could be, Jalen's feeling the burn, from not playing well. And, when you're tight, you just don't play fast. You're not free flowing. And he's the type of guy that needs to kind of have that. I would suspect that we didn't have Tari as much. He was making some defensive mistakes. He's got a tunnel vision at times too. And so I think, Ime only played him like 20 minutes in the Oklahoma City game, which I personally think was a mistake. I mean, I think you just got to let him play through that and whatever. But that could be another way that we push the pace. I mean, if Tari and Amin are grabbing rebounds, then I feel pretty confident that we can get up and go and start getting some easier buckets, because this team needs to have some transition buckets in order to have a successful offense to an extent. I mean, it can't be solely reliant on that. You can only gimmick that so much in the regular season. When the playoffs come around, that's just not how it works. But if they can get some easier buckets, then I think it would help them with their sets in the half court offense as well, just because they don't feel so stressed that they have to, execute so patiently and precisely every possession. I think that takes a toll on players. So anyway, I want to keep note of that. I want to see how that progresses over the year and see if that changes next week whenever the games aren't cup games anymore. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I think this is where, to me, things are really interesting. I always said, the 3-point frequency here is what, to me, is the bellwether of our defense. And if we're allowing a lot of threes, then I think that means that the integrity of our defense is broken. Now, some of this was by design with Shea specifically, because Shea, although I think he's at like 6 threes a game, which is like double, what we're used to from him. But we made him take like 4 threes or 5 threes in the first quarter. And I think that was by design. So I think that there's a little bit of that in here. But as you can see, our defense was drastically worse, which to me means that fundamentally our defense didn't execute the way that it normally does. And it starts with defending the 3-point line. In the Golden State game, so that means both Oklahoma City and Golden State shoot a lot of threes. So that's going to play a role in that. But despite that, I think the Rockets have been fairly effective of that throughout the entire year of limiting those. And if they're going to beat these, very good teams in Golden State and Oklahoma City, then they got to impose their will on them and make them do something different. And I don't think that that's what happened in either of these. Well, I would say in the Golden State game, that's what happened. In the OKC game, not so much. But I think we saw that, Şengün has some struggles and it takes a lot of communication when it comes to off-ball screens. I think Şengün does a fair job and has improved significantly in his ability to stunt the pick and roll or to hedge hard and recover to be able to stop lobs. Although we haven't really faced an awesome lob threat, I think he would still struggle against a guy like Lively, where you're having to hedge hard and then you have to really have to have a trust with your backside guy that he's there to stop the lob. A guy like Luka can make that corner pass, that skip pass to the corner so well, but I think you'd rather him make that pass than have the easy lob for a 3. All that being said, it's a bit more of a cohesive game whenever that comes to play, and everyone's kind of got to do their job right. But when the off-ball screens, because the guy who's getting open from the screen doesn't have the ball, then they're not an immediate threat. And so much of how anyone is taught basketball from the beginning is that if the guy with the ball is the threat, you need to position yourself in order to stop that person from getting to the basket. So when you have an off-ball screen, either Şengün's not hedging as hard, and that's probably because um, especially Golden State, right? They're so good at the back cuts that they'll slip a screen if you start over hedging on Steph. And so if you're not hedging as hard, then you don't have the help. You're not helping the guy that's chasing the screen as effectively. And I think that's harder for Şengün because I think he's kind of stuck in between because he can't, because everyone else isn't focused on this guy that's getting screened like in a normal pick and roll situation where you have more stable and predictable help. In this Golden State offense, it's not like that. And so I think he struggles with either not going out far enough or going too far, and I think that's what led to a lot of open 3-point shots for Golden State. And although obviously the Rockets defense was excellent in 89 points, it was a very slow game, first of all, but second of all, I think we saw it down the stretch that Golden State just kind of missed a lot of shots that they would normally get, and so they would normally make. I mean, Steph, and they made some bad decisions. So all that being said, I think that this 3-point frequency is going to tell us how good the Rockets are playing defense. One thing I was disappointed in is that, and this actually makes sense given the fact that I think that our defensive breakdowns were more, I can't think of the word right now, but they're more fundamental than they were this like last week, right? Although we had an uptick in the D rating where it wasn't as good, our fundamentals here were fine, and so people were just making some shots, and that's okay. Here, I think that this leads to a decrease in stocks. Why? Well, first of all, you're scrambling. When you're scrambling because you're trying to chase 3-point shooters off the line, you're not going to rebound as well, which we see here, right? 14th, 70.2%, a tick and a half worse than normal. That makes sense. And you're not going to be able contesting at the basket because your defense is all over the place. They're not where they normally are. And you're playing, you're getting dictated to. You're not dictating the action. When we're dictating the action, we're getting steals, and we're getting blocks, and we're going out and running. In these two games, we really weren't doing that. And I think that, that's both a system thing, and I know Oklahoma City takes care of the ball very well. So I think that, in short, that, having better ability to stop the 3-pointers is critical to how effectively our defense, how effective our defense is going to be moving forward. But overall, I don't think there's anything, concerning. I mean, we played two very good teams, two very good offenses. By and large, if you held two top 10 offenses to the 12th defensive rating and a 104.7, I mean, I think you would take that any day of the week. The offense has got to be the one to step up and help out, and if the defense is going to fall a bit, the offense needs to pick it up from 25th or whatever it is to 20th or 17th or something like that, and that's how we're going to win the games, playing complementary basketball. So again, I'm interested to see how the stats go when we're not playing the cup games, how they fall in line. Does the team start playing more freely, more loosely? Are we going to see lineup changes, and all those sorts of things moving forward? We'll see. The starting lineup, I think, is going to be the starting lineup, but everything else, I think, is interesting. If we see an uptick in the min minutes, uptick in Tari minutes, a decrease in Steven Adams, Jock Landale minutes, how does that all factor in? So that's what I'm looking for this week, this upcoming week. The 3-point frequency, is that back to normal, and is our pace back up? I think those are going to be the two key factors in how well or how poorly the Rockets do. All right. Well, until next week, let's see how they do, and go Rockets. Out.